Hi everybody, thanks for watching. I'm going to show you the development progress I've made in the last couple of months on the Midwinter fan remake. For those of you who are not familiar, Midwinter was a DOS game from 1989 by Microprose. It was incredibly ahead of its time with an enormous map, three-dimensional skiing and driving on a snow buggy, and hang gliding with essentially an open world sandbox approach made by Michael Singleton at Microprose. There was a remake that was attempted a couple of years ago that was the work was not completed, and this is not really a remaster. This is a fan remake. So the screens I'm going to show you look essentially almost identical to the original game. I've put links in the description to show you a video made by a person about an hour that shows you how the original game worked. And I'll be referencing that as I go through, I'm developing this in Rust Rover using Rust and Bevy. And the main reason I'm producing this video is to get co-developers. I need additional developers. I'm not much of a programmer, and so progress has been slow. I could use help if anybody's interested. So let's dive in and let me show you the decision screen. So here we are on one of the interface navigation screens. This is basically the look and the feel of the game. The navigation was pretty simple within the game. There actually weren't very many of these screens. We're actually on what's called the decision screen for Captain John Stark, Let me explain a little bit about the game for those of you who don't remember it or don't know how it worked. But there were 32 characters like Captain John Stark, and these were people that lived in this world. You played one of them at a time, and as you recruited more of them, you had more characters to play during the game, I keep saying period because it's like I'm dictating. I'm a physician, and I'm sorry about that. Anyway, this is the 2D view of the game interface. A couple of things in the upper right-hand corner is the stamina icon. This shows you how much energy the player has left for this 2-hour period of time. There are two clocks here because this game is very unique in its handling of time. You played these 32 different characters if you recruited them, and they each had a 2-hour period of time in which to do things like ski around, recruit others. You can see down here they could blow things up or they could ride in a snowcat. On the right here we have the player time, the character time, and on the left we have the target time where the turn will end. This character is currently in skiing mode, and so if I return to the three-dimensional map, he'll begin skiing. The icons at the bottom allow you to do specific actions. You can become a sniper if the enemy is nearby. You can look at the overall team. In this case, we're going to go over to the strategic map. So let's go ahead and click on that right now, and I'll see you at the strategic map. So let's talk about this strategic map view. What you're seeing here on the main view is the entire Midwinter Island. It's 400 miles by 400 miles, which is a massive map, even by today's standard, and it was unheard of in 1989 in DOS when this game was created. The map is essentially what you're looking at is a height map. There's blue for the oceans, and then low-lying areas are green, and then you've got mountain ranges here in the dark colors. This map contained basically an island, a post-apocalyptic island, kind of like Iceland, you could think. After there was a nuclear war, there was an evil dictator living down here who had a whole army of guys in snowmobiles with weapons, and they would spread out throughout the island, taking over various locations and capturing the people. The people are shown here. They're spread out throughout the island. I'm going to minimize this map control overlay. This was not in the original game up here. This is for development purposes. So let's make it look like it did. So this is the people view. There are 32 characters all spread out throughout the map. And the purpose of John Stark over here, Mr. Captain John Stark, is to recruit the other characters to defend the island against the evil emanating from the southeast. I can't remember what the dictator guy's name, but he's going to come over and try to destroy facilities and capture people. So the map shows the people, as I noted, and none of these characters would be recruited at this point. John Stark, who's at the middle, has to go to a settlement and recruit other characters. Sometimes he can, sometimes he can't recruit them, but he needs to recruit them so that they can help in the effort to defend the island. It plays very much like an open world. I could go anywhere on this map from the beginning and go and recruit essentially anybody. So let's get rid of the people right now. The little dots you see spread throughout the map are what I call settlements. They might be a village or a specific house or installation. As I pass my mouse near or over a installation, you can look over on the right and see that this is called Glen Darrow Settlement. The factory, the bunker, and the house have lit up, and so we know that this particular location contains those structures. Here's one with a heat mine. Here's one with a garage and stores. Another feature of this map system was the key on the right. As I showed you, when I hover in the map, I can see the facilities at that settlement. I can also go over to this interface and, for instance, click on factory, which lights up factory, and it shows all the factories on the map. Those icons have now turned white. Here are the heat mines. Here are the synthesis plants. This is very important because each of these buildings had a specific function. The most important in my mind were the synthesis plants, I think, and the factories, which gave fuel to the enemy and allowed them to propagate across the map quicker. So you needed, in some cases, to destroy synthesis plants, but you didn't want to destroy heat mines because once all the heat mines were either in the enemy's possession or were destroyed, you lost the game. So the player basically begins, now the player is over right here, skis around or uses a snow buggy or hang glides around to recruit other players, get them on board, and then they themselves perform their own specific actions. This is where much of the game is played, finding characters, recruiting them, skiing around. Of course, skiing physics work different when you're on a flat plane or when you're on the slope of a mountain, similar for driving. I'm going to go ahead and close the map, and we're going to go on to the three-dimensional interface. And I'll show you, that will give you a sense of the true magnitude of this map and the size of the world. Oh, by the way, you can see now I'm back with John Stark's decision screen, and I've used up a lot of his stamina already. So, okay, we've entered the 3D world. You can obviously look around there. Let me explain what you're seeing right here. I've got a control area down here which tells me what the controls are. This was not part of the game. The rest of this interface that you see is part of the game. There is an overlay, a goggle overlay. This was the view that you would see as the skier. You can see a little hill in the distance, and the terrain was made up of triangles, and there were occasional trees. The trees were very sparse. There's a little bit of a bug here. I'm showing the trees all along the island, but you should only see the trees that are nearby. That's an issue of culling, period. I can, for development purposes, get rid of those overlays and bring them back. Now for understanding, let me explain the icons at the top of the screen. These are images lifted directly from the game, and that's why they look almost exactly like they did in the game. Starting left to right, you have the portrait of the character you're playing. That changes when you recruit and play other characters. You can see the character is standing still. If I start him skiing, the skiing icon right next to the portrait changes, and I can turn, etc. Next to the turning icon is the stamina, which I showed you before. Then we have the clock, which is ticking because I'm standing here out in the open skiing. Next is the speed icon. Here is where I'm poling with my skis, essentially walking with my skis. If I click again, I can actually run on my skis. And if I hit a big downhill slope, I'll gain some speed. Here's an uphill. Watch the speed indicator, slows down, and then Oh, I just made it to the top and then it speeds up and I ski down the bottom. Next to that is an incline meter, which shows the incline of where I'm skiing, and these are all lifted directly from the original game. Then we have a direction indicator. South is where I'm headed right now. And finally, we have the mini map. The mini map shows your general local environs. You can see I'm on a flat green area. Green is flat. Yellow is the beginning of a mountain, and those mountains will become darker as we go in a higher elevation. I've modified the mini map. If you focus on it for a second, it showed in the original game a specific size. I think it was 8 miles by 8 miles. I've modified it so that I can focus in or see farther out. And you can see I have a mountain to my northeast. There are 2 settlements to the east, one northeast and one southeast. So that's basically the way that the skiing interface worked. The interface is a little bit boring right here where you see it because there weren't a lot of trees and the render distance was very small for the original game. The terrain also right now I'm on a very flat area, and so you don't see a lot of little bumps. Those bumps though are much bigger than you think. There could be hiding an entire settlement behind them. Let's ski up this steep face and down the other side. There we go. I've added a couple of other things, as I noted before, this control overlay, which is for development. And in the bottom left, shows my position in feet. It's hard to see right there, and my altitude. So that's the basic skiing interface. Next, I'm going to show you the flyover mode, which was created for development purposes. Okay, we're back in the game. I accidentally shut down or it crashed, which it does when you're developing a game like this. So we're back into the 3D skiing world, and the control panel in the lower right indicates we're in skiing mode. We're going to switch to flyover mode, and this will give you a sense of that breadth of this map. It's absolutely massive. So let's see if we can switch to the flyover mode. Okay, we are now flying over the terrain. And of course, we don't build all of this gameplay surface. There's a mesh underlying it that is the height map. You can still see in the upper right corner the mini map where we're looking, and you get the sense as we're looking northeast that there's a hill there, or there's an elevation. And if we go to the south, it looks like it's a little flatter, even with these triangles. I can swoop down and go down lower to the surface, and you get a sense of the triangles in this area. You can see the trees are pretty sparse. We are procedurally generating them. The terrain is very bumpy, even though it looks relatively flat from here. When you get down on the surface, I mean, we're pretty high up. We're at 157 feet. So let's go to the underlay mesh. Here's both the gameplay surface and the underlay. And here's the total extent of the gameplay system. I'm flying now thousands of feet, 10,000s of feet up in the air. You're seeing mountains in the distance, and eventually beyond that, you're seeing ocean. Get rid of that gameplay surface. There we go. As we fly around, the system loads new terrain, and of course, we're on an island that is 400 miles by 400 miles. Let me go even higher to give you a sense of the breadth of this island. So that little peninsula over there is probably 80 miles by 80 miles with a mountain range in the middle of it. There's the main mountain range that's very high, and you can see the extent of the system. I can only draw a small map, a small bit of the overlay, because even that little set right there of terrain is millions of gameplay triangles. Let's fly back down to the surface. And why it only drew one square, I don't know. We'll figure that out later. But here now we're back kind of looking at the terrain, still at thousands of feet high. And now we're back on the gameplay surface. And there's a couple of trees there. So that is the extent of the map. Next, we're going to actually fly to a settlement, one of those little icons, and I'll show you what I've done for that at this point. Settlements were very basic inside the actual game. Okay, we've entered our 3D skiing world. Let's switch view from skiing to flyover so I can show you the train, and we're going to go to that settlement that I told you about, showing you how settlements work. Notice that as I'm flying over, I've actually made a modification. I've changed the tree density on the terrain. So the settlement we're going to is to the southwest. As I'm flying down there, note that the terrain is very sparse. The map is huge. There's not a lot on it. And this is a feature, not a bug, of old DOS games. Old DOS games compared to current games are the difference between, I would say, reading a novel and watching a movie. The old games left a lot to imagination, were rich in story. There was less content, often at least graphical content, and it left a lot more to for the user to explore and to create in their mind, just like you do when you're reading a novel. Modern games have so much visual clutter that I think the story gets obfuscated sometimes. So here we are, we've flown down, probably this is, I don't know, 20 miles away. You can see there's a settlement in the distance. Certainly looks close, but if I go down into skiing mode, you'll see how far away it is. Let's switch to the skier. Now I'm down on the ground. I don't even think I can see oh, there it is. Okay. What would commonly happen is in the game is that you wouldn't be able to see buildings from this distance. In fact, they would be culled away. I've shown a great distance. You can see a lot of stuff far in the distance, even those hills away. So normally I would be skiing around. Maybe I would be behind this hill and I couldn't even see where the settlement was. You can see the mini map in the upper right shows my player, and you would have to use the mini map to navigate. Now I'm going toward the buildings, and there's my settlement. There's 3 or 4 buildings. There's a church, partially buried by snow, a police station, and a house. And I have to tell you that, excuse me, these buildings, these models, which I made in Meshi, are probably hundreds of times more complex than the simple polygon buildings in the original game. If you watch that video of the original gameplay, buildings are extremely simple. And these buildings are still pretty simple relative to modern graphics, but they do provide their function. So that's it for this video. I'm doing this to recruit testers and recruit developers. I'm going to go back into flyover mode and fly around the terrain. Let's go up to a mountain top, which is over here. You won't see any other settlements because they're so sparse and I haven't actually built them out. If you're a developer and you're familiar with things like Claude code and Rust, I'd love to hear from you. If you're a person that played this game and you know how to play the game, I can use testers. Here I am near a mountaintop, which is very dark. You can see a gondola system in the mini map, and you can see the steepness of the terrain I'm over, quite steep. If you tried to ski down this, you would get to 50 miles per hour. And if you're not a good skier, you would crash. That's all part of the character system. So that is the current status of the Midwinter fan remake. Please contact me if you'd like to get involved. Share this video. I wish I could say subscribe like everybody does on YouTube, but I don't have anything to subscribe to. Thanks a lot.